If I can get used to that harp music at the end of that song. BB Winan singing God Bless America 10 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock. On this Friday, the fourth day of March, prayer line is open for us, my brothers and sisters, at 505-310-9658. You are encouraged to call that number. For the next couple of hours, it will be open. You need prayer this morning. You have something good going on in your life that you just got to tell somebody about. Well, Diane is there on the other side of that line, 310-9658, and she is ready and willing and more than capable to take your call. Men, we are having men's fellowship at 7 o'clock this morning, as we do every Friday. Part of the reason why we have an abbreviated teaching program on the Friday morning session. Anyway, we are under a fire weather warning and a wind advisory here in San Miguel County. We'll have full weather reports for you at the bottom of the hour. Let's take off that number just so that we don't have it on there too long. And then let's get on to our scriptures for today. All right. Now, David's administration is... there's some, the Bible says this. Let's go over here. The Bible says that everything that can be shaken will be shaken. The only thing that cannot be shaken is the kingdom of God. Governments, economic systems, educational systems, religious systems, media, entertainment, people, businesses, everything that can be shaken will be shaken, and all of those systems are being shook right now in David's administration, the same way that they're being shook in our world today. And let me explain this to you. God is the one who shakes. It's His word who shakes. Because if you look at the 12th chapter of Hebrews, where it's talking about what I'm referring to, it says that He spoke one time from heaven and shook the earth. He says now He's shaking not only the earth, but He's shaking the heaven also. And there's a shaking that's going on in David's administration, and we've been seeing it for more than the last couple of chapters. It all started off. This whole thing started off when David decided he wasn't going to go to war. He was going to send Joab and the 600 and all the thousands of Israel out to war, and he stayed home. And then the Bathsheba thing came in, and things are spiraling out of control. That's going to, and I don't know if we even have enough time for me to get you into the place to where you really realize how this whole thing, the dominoes are falling one by one, and they're just going down the line in David's administration. And I believe it started off in that chapter. In fact, let me see if I can find it for you. I will put that off for just a little while. And while I do that, I want to let you know is that the Bible program that I have on our screen right now is called eSword, which is available to you at, so much of it is just a free download. So much of it. If anything is under copyright, they charge for it. And but here's where the whole thing starts. In my estimation, the whole thing starts at the beginning of the 11th chapter. It happened in the spring of the year, at the time when kings go out to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the people of Ammon and besieged Rabbah, but David remained at Jerusalem. This was the first domino to fall. And David's a great man. David has been faithful in many areas of his life and his administration. He's a terrific leader. But something happened. The devil has a way, and we looked at this yesterday. We talked a lot about temptation in yesterday's program. If you missed it, you can listen to it off of our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. But the devil has a way of plotting, and we should not be ignorant of the devil's devices, is what the New Testament says. In fact, Paul says we are not ignorant of the enemy's devices. It's not that hard to know how the devil works. All you have to do is hang around some seedy characters every once in a while, like you was at one time a seedy character, and know how the devil works. Always plotting, always scheming, always going out. Cunningly was the word we used yesterday. But this whole thing started, and my guess is that somewhere down the line, Satan said, if I can get David to stay home, if I can get him out of season, because it was the season when kings go out to battle, and if he can get him out of season, he can. And what I'm telling you here, ladies and gentlemen, is that we have gone through this since the 11th chapter. We have looked at David and Bathsheba. We looked at how he tried to cover it up. We looked at how the prophet Nathan in the 12th chapter comes and rebukes David. We go to chapter 13, and we see this whole story that we covered for a couple of days of Absolom and Amnon and Tamar, and it's just getting uglier and uglier. So here we are in the 14th chapter. In the 14th chapter of 2 Samuel, the whole David and Bathsheba thing has happened. The child that they conceived has died. The covers have been pulled on David, and he thought he had covered everything up pretty good, and then God sent the prophet to say, no, we're not going to let this thing survive, because it's going to turn into a much bigger cancer than it is already. So there's and that's what conviction is all about. Conviction is all about the Holy Spirit, and God used Nathan under the anointing of the Holy Spirit to come and to reveal the sin between David and Bathsheba and everything, the killing of Uriah the Hittite and all these really, really terrible things that had happened to clean out the system. You gotta pull the plug on the sink every once in a while and let that old dirty water go out to where it belongs. But that was at the end of it. We had that Tamar and the Absolom and Amnon thing happen, and David's children. So now we get into the 14th chapter. It's an extremely, extremely interesting, but sometimes it's a tough story to go through. So you read it, or you want to hear my commentary on it, you can catch the archive section that we have there on our social media platforms. And here we find ourselves in the 14th chapter. Absalom has killed his brother Amnon because Amnon raped Absalom's sister Tamar. And he has brought disgrace upon the whole family. And after Absalom, the son of David, plots to kill his half-brother Amnon, he flees up into Syria. And David is broken because Absalom is gone, but at the same time, he cannot justify what Absalom did to his half-brother. Verse 1, and we went through some of these verses yesterday. So Joab, in fact, I think we went through the first 12 verses, so maybe we'll go through them a little quick. So Joab, the son of Zeruiah, perceived that the king's heart was concerned about Absalom. So Joab has this feeling, has this discernment, is that David is missing Absalom. And Joab is the chief commander over his army and another relative. Joab was David's sister's son. the son of Zeruiah. Yeah, I can't say it this morning, but she is David's sister. So, they're all connected together. More ways than one. So Joab has this feel. He says, man, this guy, I can tell. He's, when you mention Absalom, the name Absalom, his countenance changes. So Joab sent to Tekoa and brought from there a wise woman and said to her, please pretend to be a mourner. Put on mourning apparel. Do not anoint yourself with oil, but act like a woman who has been mourning for a long time for the dead. Go speak to the king, to him in this manner. So Joab put the words in her mouth. So, Joab finds some actress, that was doing some commercials and maybe needed a little job on the side. He says, hey, go pretend like you've lost your sons. Here's the story. The story you're going to tell the king is that your husband has passed away and you had 2 sons, and the 2 sons fought with each other and one of them died. So all you have left is 1 son, and the avenger wants that one living son to pay for what he has done. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And if you don't know what that means, you're not following me this morning. So she, in this story, and it's a ruse is what it is. I mean, it's just, in my estimation, it's another good idea, but not a God idea. But here we go. We're gonna see how this thing is going to continue to evolve, darker and darker and darker. This is not repentance to where we come out of the basement. This is taking us down into the basement. I remember my grandpa in Santa Fe used to have a basement in his house, and the light switch was down at the bottom of the stairs. You know how that goes, don't you? Oh my God, every step you take, you get a little darker and a little darker, and then you start stumbling around looking for the light. And this situation that I believe started off with that day when David didn't go to war is just another step descending down, 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 and it's getting darker and darker. Get this woman, and you go over there and you tell the king that you have a problem and it's your son, and everybody wants justice and they want to kill your son, but he's the only one that you have. And you're looking for mercy. You're looking for the king to say, man, can we, fix this situation without killing my boy? Verse 8 says, the king said to the woman, go to your house. I will give orders concerning you. The woman of Tekoa said to the king, my lord, O king, let the iniquity be on me and my father's house, and the king and his throne be guiltless. So the king says, whoever says anything to you, bring him to me, he shall not touch you anymore. So he says, I got this get out of jail card that you just gave me for my son. But I'm going to go home and everybody's going to still accuse, and they're still going to say, he says, wait, anybody tells you anything, anybody rises up against you, you send them to me. That's what verse 10 says. Whoever says anything to you, bring him to you, shall not touch you. Then she said, please let the king remember the Lord your God. Do not permit the avenger. Yeah. Save my son. Yeah. Okay, so this whole act, okay, is coming about the way Joab has designed it. So this woman is getting, but it's not about a husband that is dead and 2 sons, and one of them has killed the other one, and everybody else wants justice and to kill the one. It has nothing to do with that. It's just a big old story is all. Verse 12 says, therefore the woman said, please let your maidservant speak another word to the Lord my king. So she has, she's gotten agreement. She's gotten the free pass from the king. And she starts leaving, and she, one more thing, king, before I leave. Here comes the hammer. Therefore the woman said, please let your maidservant speak another word to the Lord the king. And he said, say on. Yeah, my dear. Yeah, I gave her justice. I feel good because I gave her justice. What is it? What else can I do for you, my dear? The woman says, why then have you schemed such a thing against the people of God? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Why then have you schemed? Let's see what the message says when we get down to that. Verse 13. Why then, the woman said, have you done this very thing against God's people? In his verdict, the king convicts himself by not bringing home his exiled son. Oh my God. This was not about a husband and two sons and about the avenger of blood. And you set me up, woman. Well, you better believe that's exactly what Joab wanted to do. Joab wanted to set up the king. But his intentions are good. He knows that David is missing Absolom. He knows that Absolom is in exile. And because Absolom, watch this, Absolom is the oldest son who, by legal right, is going to be the next king. So when this woman says you have done this very thing against God's people, they're saying, hey, this guy's going to be the next boss. He's going to take over for you. And you're denying Israel from this, who's going to be the successor to the throne? Why then have you schemed such a thing against the people of God? For the king speaks this thing as one who is guilty, in that the king does not bring his banished one home. How can you give me judgment for my son, who's there wasn't even a son to go along with it, but but you can't do the same thing. How come you can't bring that justice to your son Absolom? For we will surely die. Oh, here's where you start crying and weeping these tears. For we will surely die and become like water spilled on the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. Yet God does not take away a life, but he devises means so that the banished ones are not expelled from him. And this is one of those feel-good type of judgments that she's bringing. And I got to play a song, and we're going to have a report before we go. It's after the hour of 6 o'clock. Selah singing, I have decided. Let's see what Joe said. Joe Gentry said, I have decided as well. Also, I look at our Facebook page during the break, and it says, Darlene, Corrine, Mike, and Steve are watching you. Well, somebody better keep an eye on me. That's all that I have to say this morning. Thank you very much, y'all, for keeping an eye on me. Time for us to get into a weather report. And as I do, I want to remind you is that prayer line is open till 8 o'clock at 505-310-9658. Partly cloudy today, 50% chance of scattered showers, high around 62 degrees. Very windy with a southwest wind, 12 to 30 gusts up to 41 miles per hour. Good morning, Manuel. Tomorrow, mostly sunny, high around 54. West-southwest wind, 17 to 26, gusts up to 36 miles per hour. And then Sunday, gusts up to 28 with partly cloudy skies and a 30% chance of rain showers with a high around 45 degrees. So they're even saying that maybe Monday we have a chance of some rain coming into our area. Let's invite it. Let's say, come on down, let it rain. Anyway, so here's the situation. It sounds like a great idea, man. It sounds like, well, can't we all get along? Verse 14, the woman, this actress, says, for we shall surely die and become like water spilled on the ground. It sounds like a do-gooder to me. It sounds like that do-gooder. Well, if we don't, there's times to get along and there's times not to get along. There's times to do what has to be done, and there's other times it's not the right time. Watch what she says, for we will surely die and become like water spilled on the ground. Oh, break my heart. Water which cannot be gathered up again. Yet God does not take away a life, but he devises means. No, 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 no. Man is the one who devises the means. In this situation, it's man who is devising the means. This is a backdoor solution to a front door problem, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, but you make up your own mind and take your own. Yet God does. I mean, oh my, the bleeding hearts. Oh my God, they're out over there now. With their signs, and they're all marching around. Bring them back, way back. So God does not take away a life, but he devises means so that his banished ones are not expelled from him. Now, therefore, I have come to speak of this thing to my Lord the King, because the people have made me afraid. I'm afraid for the people. I'm really concerned. Well, if you were so concerned about the people, what were you doing out there, doing whatever you're doing? I don't know. The Bible just tells exactly what she was doing, And she's probably a good woman, She's got a good pitch. That's for sure. Got a heck of a curveball. Now, therefore, I have come to speak of this thing to my Lord the King. Because the people have made me afraid. I'm afraid for the people. I don't come for myself, King. I come for the people. Well, you watch how this thing is going, where it's going. You're going to probably have to stick with me Monday and see how this thing goes. Or I got a better idea. Just read the next 2-3 chapters. Your maidservant said, I will now speak to the king. It may be that the king will perform the request of his maidservant. Just maybe we can appeal. We can appeal to that soft heart of yours. It's there someplace. There's got to be at least one little soft place in the heart of the king. Maybe we can find it. Boom, she finds it. For the king will hear and deliver his maidservant from the hand of the man who would destroy me and my son together from the inheritance of God. There was no real man. There was no real son. It was just all a made-up story. Your maidservant said, the word of my lord the king will now be comforting. And she's throwing, she's just pouring butter all over the head of the king. I mean, oh my God, drizzle, probably some maple syrup mixed over there right along. Oh my, the word of my Lord the King will now be comforting. As for the angel of God, I'm not falling for it. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just the skeptical one again. I'm just not falling for it. Chana, good morning. Remy, good morning, Remy. My God. Your maidservant said, oh, my Lord the King is discerning good. You're such a good man. Yeah, butter him up a little bit. Then the king answered and said to the woman, please do not hide from me anything that I ask you. He says, now it's my turn to ask a question, ma'am. The woman said, please let my lord the king speak. He said, but I want a real answer. I want a full. So the king said, is the hand of Joab with you in all this? David says, there's something's a little stinky on this one over here. I smell Joab in this situation over here. The king said, is the hand of Joab with you in all this? A woman answered and said, as you live, my lord the king, no one can turn to the right hand or the left from anything that the lord the king has spoken. For your servant Joab commanded me, and he put all these words in the mouth of your maidservant. You're so discerning, Mr. King. David, I'm telling you, boy, nothing can happen without you knowing it. There she is, boy. She's just pouring it all over him and buttering him up big time. Yep. Yeah, it was Joab. Joab is the one that concocted this story over here. Why? To bring change of affairs, your servant Joab has done this thing. His heart is in the right place. Okay, so we lied. Okay, so we kind of made up a story. Okay, so we deceived you a little bit on this whole situation, but it was for the good. To bring about this change of affairs, your servant Joab has done this thing. Well, Joab's concerned because, Joab wants you to be happy, and he wants Absolom to be ready to take over, and he can continue being, the commander, and maybe he can have more authority in Absalom's house than he has in your house. Because remember, Joab is always on a short leash with King David. If you've been following us, Joab and his brother, because they killed Abner, are on a short leash with David. And I think Joab wants a little bit more rope so he can do a little bit more of what but that's some of the stuff that we've been through. I try to connect a few of the dots, and maybe sometimes I'm not connect. But to bring about this change of affairs, your servant Joab has done this thing, but my Lord is wise, according to the wisdom of the angel of God, to know everything that is in the earth. You just surprised me, David. You're just so wise. Oh my God. The king said to Joab, all right, I have granted this thing. Go therefore, bring back the young man Absolom. And David wanted to bring him back. David missing his oldest son. And he tells Joab, okay, go to Syria, go get him, go over to Gresham or Gresham or wherever he's at. Go, therefore, bring back the young man Absolom. Then Joab fell to the ground on his face, bowed himself, and thanked the king. And Joab said, today your servant knows that I have found favor in your sight, my lord, O king, that the king has fulfilled the request of his servant. So Joab arose, went to Geshur, and brought Absolom to Jerusalem. So Joab falls before the king and says, oh my God, you are my hero, David. Can you give me a little more leash? Can you kind of take this collar off of my neck? So Joab goes to Syria and brings back Absalom to Jerusalem. And the king said, let him return to his own house, but do not let him see my face. So king says, yeah, you can bring him back, but I'm not going to meet with him. I'm not going to talk with him. He go to his house, come back into the land. He's got his life. I've got my life. So Absalom returned to his own house, but did not see the king's face. Now, in all Israel, oh my God, there was no one who was praised as much as Absalom for his good looks. What was the name of that guy with the long blonde hair that used to be on the commercials riding that white horse? What was his name? That guy, all husky and long blonde hair, and what was his name? He had a name. Anyway, he was on the commercials, and good looking guy. But Absalom was even better looking than that guy. From the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, there was no blemish in him. No, he didn't have no freckles. He didn't have no pimples. The guy was, kind of reminds me of Saul. And he is a Saul in spades. Now in all Israel, there's no one who was praised as much as Absalom for his good looks. From the sole of his feet to the crown of his head, there was no blemish. And don't let the outside fool you, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let the outside fool you. And when he cut the hair of his head at the end of every year, he cut it because it was heavy on him. When he cut it, he weighed the hair of his head at 200 shekels according to the king's standard. And he probably sold his hair on eBay, for a good cause. To make wigs for cancer patients or something like that, Well, you're going to find out. You say, well, why do you got something like that? Well, I'll tell you what. Fabio, there you go. Thank you, Mr. Milchowski. Yes, Fabio. Oh, yeah. To Absalom were born 3 sons and 1 daughter, whose name was Tamar. I wonder where he got that name, Tamar. He named him after his sister, whom his half-brother had raped, and Absalom ended up killing the dude 2 years after he raped his sister and plotted for her. She was a woman of beautiful appearance. And I'm telling you, and I've been saying this for the last week, The Bible does not sanitize these situations. Don't read it from a do-good perspective. Read it for what it is. Don't just, it was David, so it has to be okay, and we'll try to find an excuse. I can't find no excuses for these people at all. I'm the meanest pastor in all of northern New Mexico. Probably southern New Mexico too. Throw in southern Colorado. And Absalom dwelt 2 full years in Jerusalem, but did not see the king's face. Well, he wanted to come back home. He came back home. But that wasn't good enough. He wants to see the king. He wants to be there. Therefore, Absalom sent for Joab to send him to the king. But he would not come to him. Old Absalom, he keeps on texting Joab and said, listen, I need to talk to you. You're not answering my calls. I sent you some letters. I said, Absalom sent for Joab to send him to the king, but he would not come to him. Joab doesn't want to talk about it because he knows that the king has made a decision that he doesn't want to see Absalom. Go to your house, do your thing, plant your crops, take care of the sheep, have kids, good, but you're not going to be the next king. Therefore, Absalom sent for Joab to send him to the king, but he would not come to him. And when he sent him the second time, he would not come. So he said to his servants, see, Joab's field is near mine, and he has barley there. Go set it on fire. He says, I'll get his attention. I'll get his attention. He's getting ready to harvest that barley field and make some good money off of that barley field over there. Why don't we throw a torch in there? So Joab's field is near mine, his barley there. Go set it on fire. And Absalom's servants set the field on fire. Then Joab arose and came to Absalom's house. Oh, my God. Now Joab is knocking at the door. And Absalom says, I know how to get his attention. Joab arose, came to Absalom's house, and said to him, why have your servants set my field on fire? Welcome to the human race, ladies and gentlemen. There's sometimes I cannot justify my deeds, my actions. There's sometimes I cannot justify them. I just got to say, God, forgive me and anybody else that I've hurt along the way. We're human. We do what we do when we do, The intentions is the ones that God judges. Absalom answered Joab, verse 32, look, I said to you, saying, come here so that I may send you to the king to say, why have I come from Geshur? It would be better for me to still be there. Now, therefore, let me see the king's face, but if there is iniquity in me, let him execute me. He says, why did I come all the way from Syria? I was better off in Syria. I can't even go see the king. And I'm trying to get you to help me. You brought me back. Thank you very much. But I want to see the king. Why have I come? It would be better for me to still be there. For me to be there still. Okay, let's get it in its proper order. Now, therefore, let me see the king's face. But if there is iniquity in me, let him execute me. I want to see the king. And if I've done anything wrong, let him kill me. So Joab went to the king and told him, and when he had called for Absalom, he came to the king, bowed himself in the face of the ground before the king. Then the king kissed Absalom. So Joab goes to the king. The king finally says, okay, Mr. Softy, there was times, it's his family. What do you expect, man? It's his son. And he's good looking. He looks like Fabio, huh? Manuel.
Fabio.
Looks like, oh, yeah, looking good in the neighborhood, but and they make up, okay? They make up. But this ain't the end of the story. After this, it happened that Absalom provided himself with chariots and horses and 50 men to run before him. Oh, now Absalom, boy, he's out and around. Now he's got free reign in the country. And he's got some chariots, and he's got some horses, and he's got 50 men to run before him. And everybody says, here comes Fabio down the street. Everybody move out of the way, and everybody wave to the king's son when the king's son is coming, because that's Absalom. Look at how good look at Mahita. When you look for somebody to marry, you should find somebody like Absalom. Look at that boy. Look at that boy. Probably going to play in the NFL, the MLB, and the NBA all at the same time. Now Absalom would rise early and stand beside the way to the gate. So it was, whenever anyone who had a lawsuit came to the king for a decision, that Absalom would call to him and say, "What city are you from?" He would say, "Your servant is from such or such a tribe of Israel." Then Absalom would say to him, "Look, your case is good and right, but there is no deputy of the king to hear you." So Absalom would get up early in the morning, and people were coming into Jerusalem, and he was standing there by the gate coming into Jerusalem, and he says, "Hey, bro, where you from, man?" "Oh, aren't you Absalom, the king's?" We've heard. "Oh, my God, you are better looking. My wife is she's got your posters all over the kitchen, man. She just, and she watches your TV program, and she's got her podcast right there to watch. Yeah. He says, "Well, yeah, I'm here. This is me. And tell me what's your situation. Why are you coming in?" "Well, I need the king to rule on this man." "Oh my God! If the king had a deputy, you wouldn't have to bother the king. You could just go through his deputy. Guess who the deputy should be in Absalom's mind?" Of course, it should be Absalom. He says, "I could take care of that situation. Look, your case is good and right, but there is no deputy of the king to hear you." Moreover, Absalom would say, "Oh, that I were made judge in the land, and everyone who has any suit or cause would come to me. Then I would give him justice." And so it was, whenever anyone came near to bow down to him, that he would put out his hand and take him and kiss him. No, don't bow before me. I'm going to be the next king, but I'm here just as your servant. That's all I am, is just your servant. Just don't worry. I could take care of it for you. I won't even charge you my regular lawyer's fee is what I will do. I'll just, I'm just here as a servant of the living God. Wow, dang. We need more guys like Absalom in Israel, of course. Whenever anyone came near to bow down to him, he would put out his hand and take him and kiss him. No. You don't bow down to me. I'm just a humble servant. In this manner, Absalom acted toward all Israel who came to the king for judgment. And you say, well, what's this all about? He's going behind the king's back. David hasn't appointed him to be judge. He's a self-appointed judge. You need to know who these guys are. Some of you pastors need to know who this guy is. Some of you people that go to a church need to know who this guy is, what he's all about. Drawing people after his own self. That's exactly what Absalom is doing. In this manner, Absalom acted toward all Israel. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. Verse 6, chapter 15, 2 Samuel. He stole the hearts of the men. All of a sudden, we're not talking about David anymore. The conversation is always about Absalom. And when the television cameras come to see what's going on in the palace, just guess who's in the picture. Well, he's the best looking guy out over there. He makes for good press. Let's get his quote. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. Now it came to pass, after 40 years, 40 years of Absalom being alive. It wasn't 40 years later, okay? Now it came to pass after 40 years that Absalom said to the king, please let me go to Hebron and pay the vow which I made to the Lord. Dad, king, master of all Israel, can I have a pass to go to Hebron? Hebron was that city in Judah where David started off as king. Dad, Mr. King, Master, can I go to Hebron? Is it okay if I, I got to leave my table out. Yeah, I could see his table set up by the gate, and he's got his table there with all his flyers and his business cards and everything. That's another story. Verse 8 says, for your servant took a vow while I dwelt at Geshur in Syria, saying, if the Lord indeed brings me back to Jerusalem, then I will serve the Lord. He says, oh yeah, I cried when I was in Syria. I pleaded with God, please let me go back home. If you let me go back home, I'll go to Hebron and I'll sacrifice to you because I'm a good religious. You taught me good, Dad, on how to. I'm going to go. It's all, under the guise of faith, but it's not faith. It's religion. It's ritual is what. And the king said to him, go in peace. So he rose and went to Hebron. Now, verse 10. And I don't have a lot of time. I only got about 3 minutes more to get this going for next Monday. But it says, then Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, as soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then you shall say, Absalom reigns in Hebron. Oh, remember, I kept telling you, this thing is spiraling out of control. It's that step going down into that dark, dank basement. Absalom has been plotting against the king, his father, since he came back. In fact, probably in Syria, he says, I'm going to be back there one of these days. And just the same way I took care of my brother, I'm going to take care of my dad the same way. Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, as soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then you shall say, Absalom reigns in Hebron. He's going to take the palace, man. Yeah. This is January 6th all over again. Yeah. For some of you conspiracy theorists out over there, you know what I'm talking about. It wasn't what they said it was, but that's, I'm telling, who was I was telling you yesterday, if you want to know what's going on in the news, listen to it and then believe the opposite. Because they're going to give you the opposite story. Throw this out there sometime. Have you been hearing anything about the truckers' rally that's on the way to Washington? My brother told me yesterday that he had a report that the trucker convoy was 70 miles long. And we're not hearing nothing about it on the major media news sites. I wonder why. Well, we got to talk about Ukraine. Yeah, well, you got that one all twisted up, but what do I know? And with Absalom, verse 11, when 200 men invited from Jerusalem, they went along innocently and did not know anything. So he even invites 200 men from Jerusalem, who are probably part of David's entourage, say, hey, come on down to Hebron, man. I'm going to do some sacrificing, and you guys want to come along and give you a free motel room, and there's going to be hot tubs for everybody. And then Absalom sent for Ahithophel, the Gileonite, David's counselor from his city, from Gilhon. While he offered sacrifices, the conspiracy grew strong, for the people with Absalom continually increased in number. We'll have to resume this conversation Monday at 10 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock.